All right, this morning we've been discussing the speech Majority Leader Chuck Schumer gave on the Senate floor yesterday, calling for new elections in Israel while criticizing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's leadership.
I have known Prime Minister Netanyahu for a very long time. While we have vehemently disagreed on many occasions, I will always respect his extraordinary bravery for Israel on the battlefield as a younger man. I believe in his heart he has his highest priority is the security of Israel. However, I also believe Prime Minister Netanyahu has lost his way by allowing his political survival to take the precedence over the best interests of Israel.
Joining us now, columnist for the New York Times, Thomas Friedman. His latest piece is entitled "Netanyahu is Making Israel Radioactive." What do you make, Tom, of Leader Schumer's comments?
Well, I thought that Senator Schumer's comments were important. I think they were courageous, and I think they were right on. I think that friends don't let friends drive drunk. And Israel embarked on a war against Hamas in Gaza that was a war of survival. It was extremely important. It was justified in terms of Israel's self-defense, but it had to be done in a way, Mika, where it was framed in a kind of legitimacy framework that would enable Israel to sustain the war and sustain both Arab and Western allies. And I believe Prime Minister Netanyahu is not fighting the war that way. And I think that what Senator Schumer has done is really opened the space for a real discussion here within the Democratic Party, but also in American politics at large, where we can have a frank conversation with Israel without it being one of hostility of where are you going here? Because where you're going is, we think, going to not only undermine your interests, but also the whole diplomatic security structure that the United States has built in the Middle East since Camp David.
Tom, what is Israel's best way forward at this point?
Well, you know, Joe, on October 19th, I wrote a column. The headline was, "Israel's about to make a terrible mistake." I'll just read you the first paragraph. "I believe that if Israel rushes headlong into Gaza now to destroy Hamas and does so without expressing a clear commitment to seek a two-state solution with the Palestinian Authority and end Jewish settlements deep in the West Bank, it will be making a grave mistake that will be devastating for Israeli interests and American interests." Why did I say that? Because Israel is fighting a three-front war. First of all, this is the first war Israel's fought in the age of TikTok. Okay, where so many people around the world could follow this war on their smartphone. And because of that, narrative was very important. And the second unique feature about this war is because Hamas had dug 350 to 400 miles of tunnels underneath Gaza, and then started this war, it was inevitable there were going to be a lot of civilian casualties for Israel to get at Hamas. Therefore, you needed to have a legitimacy framework to say, we are going there to destroy Hamas, which was a fundamental threat to us, which killed and raped and killed kids in front of their parents and parents in front of their kids. We are going to get them not just as an end in itself, but to create a context for a different kind of Israeli-Palestinian relationship more broadly and between Israel and Gaza, number one. So Israel was fighting this war in the age of TikTok, and it was a war that was going to have a lot of civilian casualties. You needed to wrap it in a wrapping of legitimacy. Second, this war, you had to have an end game. Israel had fought 4 wars, I think, with Hamas before this, but none of those were wars of dismantlement. This was the first time Israel was trying to dismantle Hamas. And if you're trying to dismantle Hamas, then you need to have a vision of what is going to replace Hamas. So you're not saying to the world, we're not only just going to occupy the West Bank indefinitely, we're going to occupy Gaza indefinitely. And thirdly, this is a regional war. Besides Israel's war with Hamas, it's facing a threat from Iran and its proxies throughout the region, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Shia militias in Iraq. And to confront that regional alliance, Joe and Mika, you needed another alliance. You needed America to be able to leverage our Arab allies, our European allies to confront that Iranian network threat. The necessary cement for such a regional alliance was that Israel have a vision long-term, not for tomorrow, but long-term for a different relationship with the Palestinians based on two states for two people. So for all three of those reasons, given the unique nature of this war, Israel needed to go into it with a vision. And Israel has a prime minister now who is incapable, unwilling, and in many ways politically unable to articulate such a vision because he's a captive of the far-right coalition which he has built.
And Tom, good morning. And as the President of the United States has upped his criticism publicly now of Benjamin Netanyahu, Netanyahu has pushed back even harder, saying, yeah, we appreciate the alliance with the United States. We appreciate all the support we get. But effectively, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, regardless of what Joe Biden says. So what is the President of the United States to do with an ally like that, with a prime minister like that, who isn't listening to what he's saying and isn't listening to the fact that you've written about many times that he's walked right into the trap set by Hamas with its unprecedented savagery on October 7th, that it now walks into this trap of killing civilians. And for Hamas, as you've always said, that, you know, it's a death cult, that a dead Gazan to them is a victory because it makes Israel look bad. So what does President Biden do with Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, you know, I give the president a lot of credit for how he's handled this, because he understands that Hamas is not out for a two-state solution. In fact, Hamas is so much more a threat to Palestinians than Israelis. It has done everything it could since its founding in 2006, 2007 to destroy the two-state solution. So let's just remember that. You know, go back really to the Arab Peace Initiative, March 2002. The Arab world's meeting at a summit for the first time to endorse a two-state solution. The entire Arab League, full normalization, full peace for full Israeli withdrawal. On the first night of that summit, Hamas launched a suicide attack on an Israeli Passover Seder in Netanya that killed, I don't remember the exact number, but a large number of people, wounded many others. That was their response to the pan-Arab effort to offer a two-state solution. So we can never lose sight of that. Israel is not wrong about that, but it can't defeat Hamas without having a better answer on the other side. I think what the line the president's been walking is that he understands that for Israel's interests, Palestinian interests, and the Arab world's interests, our Arab allies, Hamas needs to be dismantled, but it's got to be done in a way not only that minimizes as much possible civilian casualties, but is framed in a larger political context so it doesn't just look like we're killing Hamas just to kill Hamas from an Israeli point of view, and not to advance a kind of different relationship between Israelis and Palestinians. It's super difficult. I think the president's handled it as well as anyone could, but we're just going to have to keep this conversation going along those lines.
Thomas, good morning. I reported earlier this week that President Biden would be willing to consider putting conditions on aid to Israel if there was an all-out ground assault into Rafah. We don't know if that'll happen yet or when. Want to get your take on that, the idea of conditioning or even withholding military aid. And I know some of the pushback from Israel has been, well, it's not just about Hamas, but the threat from Hezbollah still looms too.
Yeah, that's why I say it's so difficult, because you've got a threat from Iran, you've got a threat from the Houthis, you've got a threat from Hezbollah, the same missiles you need to confront them, and many of the same armaments, not all, but many you're using in Gaza. And I don't have an answer for it. It's a hugely difficult problem. But the necessary but not sufficient answer is that Israel needs to understand that if it does not embed this war in a larger political process, it's going to lose America, it's going to lose Chuck Schumer, it's going to lose Joe Biden, because it's just not sustainable. And so there's no simple answer for it. No one's had to fight this kind of enemy before.